台股最近受到黑犀牛风暴，拚万点是否近乡情怯呢？专家对此是乐观的分析，认为随着全球经济稳健复苏，预期美国在未来2年的经济成长率是保3有望，而欧洲的经济也将持续的稳健复苏，这都有助于台股的表现。而到底台股的短线震荡之后，可不可以重启上攻力道？我们来看看今天的关键对话。
关键时刻掌握关键对话。大家好，我是楚文。台股今年以来表现亮眼，市场都在期待接下来的上攻力道。而事实上，台股的表现和全球股市密切相关，特别是欧洲和美国的经济状况更是影响台股甚巨。而我们今天就非常荣幸邀请到了摩根全球首席策略师 Dr. David Kelly 来接受我们的专访，从他对全球经济的观察，一起来看看接下来台股会如何走势。我们一起来欢迎 Dr. David Kelly. Hello, nice to meet you, David.
Nice to meet you, Ashley.
We know that the U.S. recovery has had a major impact on the global economy and Taiwan's stock market. And recently, the market focused on the Federal Reserve tightening. That is, when will the Fed raise the federal fund rate? How's your observation?
The expectation in markets right now is maybe in the second half of next year. But what's happening is the unemployment rate in America is coming down rather rapidly. And Janet Yellen and the Federal Reserve are looking at this unemployment rate. And if it comes below 6% quite quickly in the next few months, I do think the Fed may raise rates as soon as March of 2015.
So what's its impact when the Fed take action?
I think people expect the end of the bond purchases, so I don't think that will have an impact. I think there may be some small impact as people realize that the Federal Reserve is going to raise the federal funds rate a little earlier than people thought. But overall, this is not a bad thing. This reflects the fact that the American economy is growing more strongly. That's good for America, but it's also good for emerging markets. It's good for Taiwan because American consumers will be richer. They'll be able to spend more money on a wide variety of electronic goods and technology goods. So in that better environment, I think stocks will do quite well, both in emerging markets and the United States, despite this rate increase.
So in the following 2 years, are you optimistic on the U.S. economy?
Yes, I think I am. I think the U.S. economy will continue to grow as the unemployment rate comes down. I think a lot of the things that were dragging on the economy have gone away. But I will say that in the long run, once the unemployment rate has fallen to, say, 5% in the United States, I don't expect it to fall much more. And that actually means that the U.S. economy will grow more slowly after that, because right now it's growing because a lot of people are going back to work. But once you run out of people to go back to work, then there isn't much labor force growth. So I think the U.S. will grow more slowly in the long run, although it'll be pretty good, about 3% growth, I think, for the next 2 years.
And when we look at Europe, we see that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is getting worse. And the EU claimed that they will take economic sanction against Russia. So do you worry about that will affect the recovery of Europe economy?
We're watching the conflict in Ukraine very closely. It is obviously dangerous. I think the more this escalates, the greater the danger that Europe will put strong sanctions on Russia, and Russia could retaliate. I mean, Russia could cut off energy going to Europe this winter, and that would be very painful for the European people. It gets very cold, and it also would hurt the European economy. But overall, there's nothing Russia can do to Europe that's not going to hurt Russia more, because in the end, Russia depends upon Europe much more than the other way around. And because of that, I think Vladimir Putin will see how far he can go, but he will stop there. So we're watching it, but at the moment we don't think that's going to really disrupt the European recovery.
And the market also focuses on that whether the ECB will take action of QE. How's your observation?
The European Central Bank will engage in QE. Mario Draghi has talked about this. So they're going to try and buy some bonds. I don't think they're quite ready to buy outright sovereign debt, but they'll try to buy what are known as asset-backed securities. It's not that big a deal. The European economy works off bank lending, not bond markets, really. So I don't think it will help Europe grow that much. But I think Europe's going to grow despite it. Economies don't always need central banks to fix them. They can actually fix themselves, and I think Europe is beginning to fix itself.
However, all 28 EU leaders issue a statement mentioning that the recent weak economic data have confirmed that the recovery of Europe economy is weak. So are you still optimistic of the Europe economic's recovery?
Yes, I think Europe will have times when the economy slows down a bit or the recovery slows down a bit, or times when it speeds up. But once an economy starts to grow, once the unemployment rate begins to fall, it tends to keep falling unless it's hit by some big shock. And we've seen this over and over again in the United States, for example. Once the unemployment rate starts to fall, it continues to fall. So I think we'll have some periods of weakness from time to time, but I'm confident that Europe has what it needs to grow. Remember, European consumers want to buy more stuff. European workers want to work more hours. So it just takes a while for an economy to heal.
Because we see that the Europe stock have risen a lot in this year. How do you see the future of Europe stock, and how will it affect Taiwan stock market?
I think European stocks should do pretty well over the next 5 years. As the unemployment rate comes down in Europe, and remember, the unemployment rate in the Eurozone is 11.5%. That's very high. And as it comes down, Europe will grow more strongly. As Europe grows more strongly, corporate earnings will go up. And ultimately, it's corporate earnings which drive a stock market. So I think we'll see that over the next few years. It won't just happen in 1 year, but over 3 or 4 or 5 years, we'll see growth in earnings, a growth in the European stock market. And I don't think the European stock market will affect Taiwan much, but I think a growth in the European economy will. Because just like American consumers who haven't been spending too much money, European consumers certainly haven't been spending too much money. So seeing an improved economy in Europe will, over a number of years, I think also be positive for the Taiwanese economy.
And how do you view the renminbi's movement? Will renminbi appreciate in the end of this year?
We think it probably will. Clearly there was some effort by the People's Bank of China to remind people it's not a one-way bet. For a long time, the renminbi has been moving up, and then it fell earlier on this year, and I think that caught a lot of people offside. Our sense is the Chinese still want the renminbi to move up over the next few years, but I'm not really sure that's very good for China. I mean, Chinese wages have gone up a lot, but China needs to be able to export. And what I think will happen is, in fact, other countries in Southeast Asia will benefit from stealing exports that China would have made. So I think particularly in Southeast Asia, countries like Malaysia and Indonesia may be exporting more because China will be exporting less because Chinese wages are too high. So the renminbi going up is actually making other countries in Southeast Asia more competitive.
And how's your prediction for China's economic growth rate in the following 2 years?
Yeah, I think that the official GDP numbers will probably show Chinese growth moving down to about 7% and then maybe moving down to about 6.5%. But to be honest, I don't have much faith in these numbers. I think a lot of economists look at these numbers and they realize that they're not very accurate. So I don't really think about the Chinese economy in terms of their GDP growth rate. But more generally, we know that the housing industry is slowing down in China. We think infrastructure spending will be a little bit more slow. And you know, export growth, because of the rising renminbi, will not be quite so strong. So we do think China will grow more slowly, but still at a rate that's very strong relative to the developed world.
So overall speaking, how will this market's performance affect Taiwan's stock market and the economy?
There are a few parts to this. I mean, first of all, I think the global economy will grow quite nicely over the next year or two. I think Europe, the United States will continue to grow by about 3% over the next 2 years. I think Europe will grow more strongly next year than it has this year. I don't, you know, as I said, I think China will grow a little bit more slowly, and Japan probably about the same pace. So overall, global growth will pick up, and that's positive for Taiwan. I think another issue is the close linkage between the Taiwanese dollar and the US dollar. I do think the US dollar will move up a bit, and that will tend to put upward pressure on the Taiwanese exchange rate. That's not completely helpful because you need a competitive exchange rate to export. But overall, I think the economic environment will improve for Taiwan. And then I think stock markets around the world will probably continue to rise, and that also will, I think, help Taiwanese stocks, I think investors will be willing to take more risk as they see the global economy improving. So I'm pretty optimistic about the outlook for the Taiwanese stock market.
Thank you, David. 全球经济虽然面临了乌克兰和俄罗斯冲突等等的变数，但是整体来看，欧洲和美国的经济稳健复苏。David 甚至预期联准会有可能在明年上半年就升息，加上中国和日本也都表现稳定，也让台股未来的走势更加令市场期待。